gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see everyone here. Hello, hello, hello. Give people a chance to get in. Okay, guys, this one's going to be a little bit different. We've had Ana on calls before. And I mean, you have to humor me. You all know Ana's like a relative, like she's my accountability partner. So, but I promise I'm not going to be too casual because you know me, I like to be very professional. But what we're going to do is the rule about only quirky questions is off the table on this one, because Ana is a much kinder soul than I am, and she welcomes questions, and she also heads our Welcome Wednesday classes, calls, because we wanted to give an opportunity, because you know me on my calls, especially the old school calls, it's all about venting and relax. I feel like the instructions and the how to start and everything is all dealt with everywhere else on the internet. And I want to hear the good stuff like dirty family secrets and all that. So Ana was like, shouldn't we help people that actually have real questions? So that's where we got the once a month Welcome Wednesday calls. So for this call only, please feel free. You've got to type question ahead of it because I will assume that you're chatting amongst yourselves. But please feel free to type question and all questions go. It'd be nice if you could throw a few quirky ones in there just to humor me. But,
oh, good, because I have some.
Yeah, Barbara always has the quirkiest questions. I'm scared of Barbara's questions. I'm glad I'm not ever on the other end of them. Okay.
Don't be scared.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I'm counting on you. I am. Okay, Ana, please, can you, well, I'll hand it over to Ana. Can you say something real quick so your picture comes up on the screen for me, Ana?
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming.
There you go. And Ana is also our queen of mindset and authenticity, guys. And I cannot tell you how many friendly lectures I've been on the other end of, well-deserved ones. And so if you're new and have questions about how to start, and is it all a bit overwhelming, and what do you do with this and your website, you'll get a true, Ask Ana. If you're old, like me, and just have questions about, oh my God, how do I drag my old carcass into that booth today when I just want to eat chocolate chip cookies and get drunk, right? Or just me, but Ana can answer those questions as well. But Ana, let's start with, how have you been since our last chat? What's been going on in your narrator world?
I'm very well, actually. Thank you very much for asking. I meant to look up before I came on when it was I was on last, because I don't remember if it was more than a year ago that I came on with my, I think it must be more than a year, because I hadn't moved house yet when I was on talking about authenticity and acceptance and this new idea that I'd come across and was fascinated by. And you allowed me to just chat for ages because I couldn't get it off my chest fast enough. I was like, oh, people have to hear this because it's real and it's true, and it's, so I was a little overexcited. But
and you've been living
it
for a year, huh? You've been living the authenticity
pretty much
for a year.
It's an ongoing thing. I'm fascinated by mindset and self-help and all things kind of, if I've got nobody to turn to, who do I turn to? And what do I do? And for me, it's always been books about self-help, books about self-worth and self-promotion, and, whether that's marketing and branding and presenting yourself to the world. And then this whole social media has just taken over our lives, hasn't it? And so not losing yourself in social media has been a big thing for me too. Finding out how I relate to it and it relates to me, and what effect it has on the people that I show certain things to, but don't show other things to. I think it's all fascinating, to be honest.
And you have to be so strong, don't you? Because like things happen like that. I'm not going to say the dreaded words, but like the recent news that the audiobook world has been all aghast about. And you try not to let it affect your focus, right? But it's so hard. How do you not get pulled into that tidal pool? And in this case, it's a scarcity pool. It's
Very much so. I think the whole pandemic has changed us, hasn't it? You know, it's changed the way people view themselves, how they view what they were spending their time on before, and how the things that they thought important. It's made us all, I feel, reprioritize. You know, it's made everybody just stop for a second and go, hang on, what does this really mean for me? And everybody's been affected really differently. Some people have lost really close loved ones. Some people have lost very good friends. Some people haven't lost anyone and don't think it's real. You know, there is a crowd for everything, isn't there? And so everybody's dealing with it really differently. And I think it's affected me hugely. And it's certainly made me take stock and reprioritize and acknowledge where I was spending a lot of my emotional energy, where it really wasn't needed or required. And mostly it was a waste. It was a shame to be spending so much time worrying about certain things when actually they really weren't that important at all. But it's really easy, isn't it, that snowball, for you to get caught up in all these things and just get completely wound up about it and not know where to turn or what to do about it, because it's about a lack of control mostly, isn't it? Whether it's the scarcity of work and us being taken over, or the pandemic and, you know, not being able to leave the country or not being able to see people we love, you know, so many things that we can't control. And we're having to relearn certain things. It's a time of change for lots of people, and change isn't good, is it? We don't react well necessarily to change.
I think, you know, I mean, we kind of touched on this morning, but I think you brought up something really, really strong that's in the forefront of my mind recently, because I'm working on getting the core of myself emotionally very, very strong. So, and I'm not succeeding half the time, so that when things derail me, you know, I can stand firm and do what I'm going to do. And you just made me realize why I love Christmas, get so excited. I love all the trappings. But a lot of other people have a hard time at Christmas, and their emotions or situations can't help but like affect you, like other people have a hard time. So even if you're like a diehard Christmas lover, you know, but the thing that gets me every year is, and I thought it was scarcity, but I'm booked this year and I still feel exactly the same. It's not scarcity. If I work, I'm proving to myself I'm of value. And if it goes quiet, all of a sudden I'm left with, oh crap. And Christmas, no matter how much work I have, is still quiet, because you're not going to get that email with that surprise job. You're not getting 600 quick responses. Everyone else is gone drinking their damn eggnog. So I wonder how, I guess that's wrong, huh? What else is there other than work? I mean, I love work is me.
There is no right and wrong, and that's the bit I love. You know, once you let go of right and wrong, there's an awful lot more space to do some discovery. And actually, it's about self-awareness. It took me a really long time. So I entered the industry, well, back in 2004, I had a midlife crisis, if you will, where I discovered that I was in completely the wrong career and hadn't followed my dreams and didn't enjoy what I did. And my kids were getting older and they were going to leave, and I was going to be left with a life that I was supposed to be creating, and I'd kind of forgotten for a minute. So I started taking music lessons, and I started doing a lot of singing and taking part in a lot of theatre work, and over sort of 5-7 years, sort of discovered things about myself that I knew to be true, but had forgotten, and discovered voiceover, corporate work, and then audiobooks in, you know, that lead up to this. And then these last perhaps 6 years have been more audiobook centric. And then in 2017 is when I went full time, having finally got to the point where my imposter syndrome had been reduced to a small enough entity that I was able to go, okay, I need to step into this. I need to actually take up some space. And I think everybody's journey is so different. That idea of self-awareness is something that's taken me a really long time to break down sufficiently that I could then start putting it back together. Because mostly I was patching holes and pretending things weren't true and hiding things under the carpet and ignoring them. And I talk about it all the time. I join every webinar and every group I can, particularly the free ones, where people just sit around and talk about themselves, the things that hold them back, and the discoveries people make about things like they're doing really well in their careers, but they might self-sabotage because if they make more money than their partner might get really upset. And it's something they're totally unaware of, that's completely comes out of left field, but explains absolutely everything about their lives. And it took me a while to kind of discover what my triggers were, what things did I believe to be true because of my parents, because of my social group, because of the people I hang with. What things did I believe to be true that were actually holding me back? And I'm still going. It's an ongoing thing, not unlike audiobook narration that is a forever journey. I think learning about yourself is an ongoing thing. I don't think it ever stops, and it constantly changes as your life situation changes, or your friends change, or the books you're narrating. You know, each book that comes up, you go, what's this one supposed to be telling me? What am I learning here with this producer that's not necessarily being as kind to me as he could be? Or these words that won't read themselves. You know, sometimes there are different things that kind of teach us things. And it's hard sometimes to step out of the moment to go, what's the lesson here? What am I supposed to be learning? And a lot of the time I was just hitting my head against the brick wall going, I can do this. I can just hit it harder. You know, if the nail won't go in, then just get a bigger hammer. And it turns out it was, you know, a screw it needed, not a nail, you know, whatever it is. It's a fascinating journey. And I think I use analogies left, right, and center, as anybody who's come to one of the monthly groups will know. And it really is about finding the thing that works for you. Like I feel about coaches, you know, a lot of people feel that perhaps one particular coach explains all their the things they need to know about this industry, but actually I believe that you need to continue to research and discover and meet more people and do a one-to-one with every single person who will offer you one, you know, as much as you can, because there are so many different opinions and so many different viewpoints and so much to learn and be discovered that I think it's worthwhile continuing to learn and grow within this industry. I think and all of that comes from the self-awareness and the creative side of us that we're looking to ultimately put into audio and share with people.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I have a question. I have a couple of questions. Anna had me before this call message her because she was like, oh, something I want to talk about. And I was like, hold on. I hope you don't think you studied for this, because I'm going to derail you if you did. But you don't have to, because you've got plenty of material with your Clubhouse calls, because you get all the questions. So this one's right up your alley. We talk all the time about all those hacks like mantras and the Mel Brown. I tried that high five yourself in the mirror every day. It didn't work for me. And the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It didn't work. I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold on, Vlad, I'll be up in a minute. And then I go back to, I think I do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 like 60 times. And don't get up. And I recently been talking to friends. I have a lot of friends that feel that they're not as good. They want to fix themselves. They're never going to measure up. They wish they could conquer their lack of self-confidence. They feel like, and I'm the wrong person. I avoid giving in my particular brand of advice because you can't just say to somebody that's like desperately trying to grab a shred of self-esteem to grow a pair. And that, which is my first, you know, that's okay on YouTube, right? As long as I didn't say the actual word. I don't want to have to label the call, but you can't, but that's how I talk to myself. So, and I'm aware that's why you're the Wednesday call girl and not me, because I feel like you can get anywhere as long as you know deep down that you're going to do it, that you can count on yourself. But what do you do if you can't do the mantras and you can't, and the hacks don't work, and the telling yourself you're lovely and maybe taking a couple of bubble baths? What do you do for the people that just don't have that self-confidence? They weren't raised with it, they don't have it, and they desperately want it. How do they get it?
So I am one of those people. believe it or not. I'm not the person I
I
used to
don't
be.
believe it, but go ahead.
Well, luckily you all only met me now because I've been hiding for the last 50 years because it was hard. And it is hard. And I think one of my most recent favorite things about the whole idea of mantras and, planning and all those things is that I don't remember who I was listening to speak, who said, oh, by the way, it's Mel Robbins, the lady you mentioned who does the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Did I call her Mel Brooks or something?
Yeah.
Right. Close enough.
Yeah, Mel Robbins. She's all about self-empowerment and kind of helping yourself help yourself. But somebody was talking about learning languages. When you stop and you decide you fancy learning French and you think every Wednesday you're going to go for 2 hours to a French class because learning French would be nice. And that way you could go across to Europe and visit Paris and all those things. When you learn French, you don't forget how to speak English. And I went, yeah. And they said, so all these mantras about I'm going to be rich next year and I'm going to find love and I'm going to work with all the producers. All the talk you were doing beforehand about maybe I'm not good enough and why would they want me and who am I to be here? That didn't go away. So you're not replacing the negative talk that's in your head. You're just adding more work. You're just reminding yourself that you're not good enough because despite saying these mantras every day, they're not working. And actually, the self-awareness, it always comes back to the same thing. It's this consciousness of self and awareness of why the mantras don't work. So like you, Mel Robbins' 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which I'll explain in a second to people, doesn't work for me either. So Mel Robbins has sold millions of books. The book is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she has a new one called The High Five Habit. And she's fabulous. She talks
she's amazing.
everywhere in America. She is incredible. And she has a great story, and she's pulled herself out of, darkness, and she now promotes.
And it leaves me wondering, why can't I pull myself? I mean, I'm not saying I'm in darkness, but I'm just like, I can't pull myself out of bed.
So
right?
the idea that she has is that at any time that you are resisting something, whether that's getting out of bed and starting work or getting up to take the dog for a walk, but it's raining, whatever the thing might be, you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do it. And the idea is that it's like liftoff. It's like a rocket taking off or something happening. Your brain knows that countdown means something has to happen. And the idea is that you basically trick yourself into getting out of bed or leaving the house or making the phone call or whatever the thing is. But I, like you, I'm a particularly stubborn person. And I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And it's just me. It's just me sitting there, just me counting, just me not taking a walk, just me. And it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. So I had to do a lot of work on whose voice is that? Who is the person in my head going, I just won't, folding her little arms and stomping her foot and refusing to be told what to do, when actually it's me doing the telling. The whole thing just blew my mind.
But that's a spoon thing, isn't it? The amount of things, and I don't look at the spoons like energy like I did when I first heard the theory, but to me, you only, how they say you only have a certain amount of willpower. I find that I have a make myself do things quotient, like, and if I use it up, making myself do too many things, even if it's like high-fiving, that feels like I've made myself do something, and I only have so many of them. And then that little stubborn 10-year-old like, I'm not doing this, comes out.
So one thing, I mean, you're talking about the idea of, mid-afternoon, you want to write an email and your brain no longer can, because you wrote 2 this morning and you did some recording and you put the washing on and you emptied the dishwasher and you took.
But you're waking up not wanting to do.
I'm talking about first thing in the morning, refusing to be told what to do. So it depends on what kind of a person you are. And I think learning about what kind of a person you are, what triggers you have, what your life situation says about you, which bits of your life you don't actually like very much, and which bits you could get rid of. They often say, discard the people in your life that aren't, serving you. And you're like, yeah, somebody tell my mother, because that's not a thing. That's not going to happen. That's not kind. It's there are certain things in our lives that we do have to do, whether we like it or not. And whatever that happens to be, whether it's walking the dog every day or, you know, making breakfast and making sure you eat meals, or, you know, whatever the thing is that does or doesn't work for you. It's really important to acknowledge which bits you want and which bits you don't. I mean, you ran a, sorry, I was just thinking about, everybody's talking about sort of next year and 2022 and 5-year plans. And I don't have a 5-year plan. And for a couple of weeks, it was driving me insane. I was going, you know, what sort of a person am I not to have a 5-year plan? How am I not, you know, reaching for the stars? And why aren't I wanting to do all these things? And I realized that 4 years ago, I set a 5-year plan and I'm still finishing. I'm a bit busy at the moment, you know, I'm kind of only just coming to terms with all the changes I've had in my life. And I don't think you can set a 5-year plan every year. Otherwise, it's not a 5-year plan. So because you did talk to us about the summer thing you did, which I never got round to doing.
Yeah, I learned a big lesson. We did a summer school for Cup of Joe. I think it was over a year ago. It wasn't this summer. It might have been the summer before that. And we did all because, you know, I've been on this whole self-help kick since I was 8 years old. So we started off, I think, with the visualization, where you want to be. We did it in the visualization. There's a book about remembering. So you put yourself forward a year from now and you remember. I remember last year, I really wanted to work with such and such publisher. And I was so surprised when they gave me a job by the end of the year. I remember I wanted to lose weight, and at first I thought it was going to be hard. And I was so surprised that I consistently walked. You know, at first I didn't do as much as I thought, but I did 3 times, and we recorded it. And we did it with images of the publisher logo and the things we wanted to achieve. Because being from LA and a believer in this stuff, I know that when you write things up, there is magic in writing things out longhand and thinking about things, saying them out loud, hearing your own voice do them. We did vision boards, we did goal setting, we did everything. We touched on every single bit of visualization and self-help. And some of it stuck and some of it felt good. And I compare it to the Fight Club, which I can't talk about, that I also started, which is different. And we touch base every week and talk about the 3 goals we had for this last year. Spoilers, some of the people in the club have accomplished all of them. I've accomplished none of them. So, but I'm the one that posts, so I still get to stay in it. So, but I think that accountability, even showing up when you haven't done it, has been more successful and helpful than you can do it, make a million, believe in yourself, which is, to my core, I believe in that. But I think that the dreams and the visualizations, you have to have more of a balance of action than planning. And the dreaming and the vision boards, I'm going to make £1 million by such and such, is a great idea. It's a great exercise to do on a rainy afternoon in front of the TV. But the Fight Club, I have to show up. Coughing, hacking, feeling sorry for myself, didn't do a single walk this week, barely kept up with my schedule, and I still have to show up. So not once this year was I able to forget those 3 goals. I can barely remember what I planned and my big vision board. And a lot of people swear by them. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's really, really a big deal to have a goal and plan like you did your 5-year plan 5 years ago. But I don't think doing it all the time, spending your whole life planning, is the answer. I think then you have to go and live like the person that's achieved those goals every single day, which is the part that sucks.
So I didn't consciously. So the reason Mel Robbins talks about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is because she's about action. She's about, not leaving yourself in analysis paralysis and going, spending so much time researching and investigating that you never actually take action. And that's what 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is supposed to be about, really, is about making yourself get up and go, making yourself do the thing that starts the job. I'm reminded of, there's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits, and he talks about how hard it is to make new habits and about the fact that they need to be, easy and satisfying and attractive. All the things we often try and make ourselves do are hard. We ask hard things of ourselves and then beat ourselves up when we don't achieve them. So it's really important. How you set those habits is just as important as which habits you set. And when I say I set a 5-year plan, I was in a terrible space 4 years ago, and I wasn't consciously setting a 5-year plan. I was stuck. And the advice I got was, you're not doing this for you. You're doing this for Anna in 5 years' time. And so it basically did the same thing for me. I had to look to Anna in 5 years' time and go, what does she want from me? Who is she? And who do I have to be now to get there? What things would I have to do over this space of time to become that person? And it worked, surprisingly, because at the time, they didn't feel like things that made sense. But Anna in 5 years' time was going to turn around and say, I can't believe you stayed there, or I can't believe you didn't do that thing. What were you waiting for? What was the problem?
But belief, don't you think belief, you have to do those things. They're just hacks and habits, which is why I have the problem. I think to do those things, you have to believe you're a person that does them. And that, I think, is the hard part.
Or you have to be in a bad enough space and uncomfortable enough with how you are to want to change. I think that's also an issue, because it's very easy sometimes to, better the devil you know. It's easier to be in a slightly uncomfortable job doing audiobooks part-time because you can handle it. Nobody is hassling you. Nobody is complaining that you're taking too many risks. Nobody is accusing you of, being selfish, or, all the things you're anticipating might happen. None of it's happening. So actually the status quo is good.
I hate
and that sometimes is an issue too.
The guilt, I just flashed to, I fasted for 2 months. I did so well. And then I got the results of my blood tests back, and they said that my health was miraculously fixed. I was pre-diabetic evidently, but I got the results back and I wasn't. I was amazing. My blood was perfect. I stopped fasting that night to celebrate, and I haven't gone back on in 3 months because I'm not uncomfortable enough. I have a question I don't want to lose because they go up the line. Craig was wondering this is going to be a fun one. What is to date Anna's crowning achievement that she's most proud of?
It was a slow burn, actually. So my kids were taking piano lessons at school, and it made me conscious that I had always wanted to get into music. There were feelings of it within my family, ideas of generations past. My great grandfather was a very famous composer in Spain, but my parents were not as artistically inclined. And so I went to university, studied economics, took up an office job, and suddenly my kids are learning piano, the other one's learning the trumpet, and I was a tiny bit jealous. I'm going, hang on, why can't I do that? And why can't I do that? So every day with the same piano teacher, I would stop in and have a lesson with him, then pick them up from school and take them back to him. And it kind of worked. And then I realized it wasn't piano lessons I wanted to sing. Why wasn't I just singing? So I started taking singing lessons, and for 5 years I studied classical singing. And I lived a time out in the countryside where there was no opportunity other than a couple of kind of, charity shows, and we would raise money for this charity, and we would go off and do a big, celebration fair thing in some big city, and then we'd come back and everybody'd have a great time, but there was kind of no outlet. And so I got into musical theatre, and I got the lead in a show. And the first time I stepped out on stage by myself to sing a solo, I felt like I'd come home. And it had been a long, long time coming. It had, at school, I wasn't the popular kid. I wasn't the best musician. I wasn't the best. I was actually really good at sport. So I was the captain of sports and I enjoyed it, but I didn't, it came very naturally. So it didn't feel like an achievement. This felt like something I had worked incredibly hard for, and I got a huge round of applause for. And suddenly it just kicked into high gear, and I went, hang on, I want more of this. And so you go searching for that kind of, not necessarily the applause itself, but the feeling it generates inside you, the feeling of creativity, that feeling of working hard towards something and then pulling it off.
Okay,
Whether it's...
I have a question. Good question. sorry to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget this one. You said sports, and you said that feeling inside of you. Do you have a feeling, am I allowed to say about your father that he's your
Yeah.
father? Okay, so your father is a famous footballer, right? Do you have a feeling inside your bones that I'm his daughter? That's, you can't, like nothing can get you down because do you know who my father is? I'm just saying I would if my father had accomplished that much.
Sorry, I don't need to go into it, but you know, families are weird, aren't they? You know, you never really know what's going on behind people's front doors. And so although my father played soccer professionally for Real Madrid, and I didn't actually find that out till I was 15 years old, because when I was born, my father was a fruit salesman. He had had 3 children. The family all lived in Spain. He played football professionally. And in the 50s, nobody got paid well for playing soccer. It wasn't a multi-million-dollar, you know, career then. And so he became an export fruit salesman. So I grew up with a father who went to Covent Garden and sold fruit from a boat that came from the Canary Islands with bananas and avocados and tomatoes. And mostly at home, we talked about the fact that he rarely brought home, you know, a basket of stuff. He brought home a crate of tomatoes. And so we would have, for 2 weeks, we'd have tomato sauce, tomato soup, tomato salad, tomato, and then he'd bring home a crate of bananas. And it was never kind of, that was the conversation at home. So I discovered or acknowledged that he was a football player as a teenager when I started talking to boys, and I would mention it and they'd go, I'm sorry, what? Can I meet your dad? And they would come round to my house to meet my dad. I'd be like, he's my dad, you know, like, what are you talking about? So there was this, like with my great grandfather being a composer, in theory, it wasn't a big deal. And yet at 21, I went to Valencia and there's a huge statue and a fountain to him in the middle of Valencia. And I'm like, hang on, this is a big deal. Why wasn't I told this was a big deal? So I think it's about mentalities. You know, my father was, you know, grew up during the Spanish Civil War. My mother's family ran away from Spain and landed in England as World War II started. And people go through stuff, don't they? You know, they survive as best they can, and they go through life with their own torments and upsets, and then they exist. And I think what I acknowledged in my 40s when I realized that I was not doing the things I loved is that you can just exist. You can just put one foot in front of the other, put food on the table, make sure your kids are safe, make sure your parents are well, make sure the dog's fed, and it's another day and another day. And for a second, I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to go, I did this.
Yeah, that terrifies me, the thought of just existing. All those memes where they say, breathe the air, smell the garden, you don't have to. That freaks me out.
I'm reminded of the book you recommended me that I've been recommending left, right, and center, called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which is all about the fact that we have a finite amount of time here, and yet we spend all of our time waiting for some future self. You know, when I retire, I'll do this thing, or when my kids leave home, I'll be able to whatever, or if I could just pass this exam, then I'll have more free time, or if I can, and it's always something has to happen before another thing can happen, when actually we all need to be taking a step back, which is what I was talking about earlier with the pandemic, whether we've all been able to go, how important is this to me really? And what about that thing that was actually really, really important that I've kind of ignored now and I should be doing something about?
I have to give a shout out because Sarah Nestle's here. And I've told everyone, Sarah, Sarah is the original finder of the 4,000 Weeks. And like, literally, I've been like insisting the guests read it. But you made me think of what happened yesterday. And that's what bothered me the most yesterday. I won't obviously say names, but one of my writers was in hospital and passed away last night. And this wasn't, I'm dear, dear, dear friends with a lot of my writers. This was a writer that I had mostly a professional relationship with, but she was on Facebook and I saw her things. But what it was, Anna, it's what you said. I had just finished one of her books. And when your writers write their books, their voice goes out to the world and you feel like it could change, like they're accomplishing this amazing thing that could change everything. Like, and that's what I'm chasing. my whole life. I want to be the voice that pulls somebody up like somebody did to me at my worst time. I want to be that voice. But she was that voice. And now in the space of a day, she's gone. And so then you think, maybe I should have relaxed with the budgie and watched TV more. Do you know what I mean? Because like, it's the finitude is in the book. It's you want to reach out and you want to be that voice and you want to do amazing things, but then like you just disappear.
But it also isn't just about there is this sensation. I was fascinated the other day by two words. One is entrepreneur and the other is freelancer.
Yeah, what were you saying about that?
Yeah, I was trying to work out what they meant and why they're around. And there is this sensation that an entrepreneur, there's in the back of my head, there's this idea that it's somebody who works 7 days a week, who is permanently hustling. They're always looking for the next break or the next exciting thing. And they're always first on the button and they're always investing in the right place and, you know, getting out of the market just in time. Or it's this idea of hustle and rush and speed, when actually entrepreneur means to undertake a project. And I went, what? Like, really? Like, if you type in etymology entrepreneur, so I typed in etymology freelancer, turns out that freelance comes from medieval mercenaries, people who were paid, who had a lance and were available to fight on your side. So
Ooh,
not somebody
like that, though.
Well, yeah, but not somebody who spends 24/7 worrying about whether or not they should send an email and whether or not they've done their invoicing and whether or not they're going to get another job and who's ever going to employ them again and whether, and that idea of that constant wheel of it's a hamster wheel that you have to get off once in a while. And I think I was acknowledging, having got this far in my career, that suddenly it was running me instead of me actually enjoying it. And so the 4,000 weeks thing allowed me to, again, just sit back a second and go, what am I actually doing and why am I doing it and who am I doing it for? You know, I'm very good now at not seeking external validation, but as a youngster, the reason I didn't get into creative arts is because I was waiting to be discovered. I was waiting for somebody to go, oh, you're amazing, come with me and I'll make you famous, because that was what was supposed to happen and it didn't happen, therefore I must not be very good.
Like the publisher's HR department handing us the badge.
So, you know, living with that for then 20 years and then going, hang on, there's space for everybody, which is ultimately my ongoing ethos, which is what I say every time people come on the monthly call and they say, you know, I don't know how to do this thing, or I don't know how to move forward, or I don't know what
things. What do they ask on those calls?
So sometimes it's very career-driven things. So it's, you know, I've been on ACX for a while and I've done 6 books and now there's no books that are interesting. I mean, recently ACX have changed their system whereby the authors have to register with the US Copyrights Department, which costs $65 in an attempt to stop all the scam books that were being put up that the rights holders were unaware of, which is great for us. But what it means is that people are now a little more reticent about actually putting their books up on ACX, or are becoming more aware of other places to go. So people who started on ACX are going, there's no work, there's suddenly just no books and nobody wants me and what's happening? And you go, that's not a thing. You know, the industry constantly shifts and changes. It's an ongoing thing. So if your single source of income is less than, go find other sources of income. And, you know, like with the stock market, like with life, you have to put your couple of pennies into each pot. You know, there has to be lots of, you know, no eggs all in one basket. So if that's working with independent authors, if that's going to conferences and making friends with writers or production houses so that people will employ you as and when, you know, if you had 12 production houses who each gave you 1 book, that's the book a month already covered. You know, and I appreciate that I'm making it sound simple, but of course, if you're constantly hassling for ACX to give you a book where 400 people are applying and the author's not even very sure if they want their book turned into an audiobook, the chances of it becoming your job are much smaller. So there are other ways to go looking for work. And you have to work out what kind of a project undertaker you are, what kind of an entrepreneur, business owner you are.
And to learn to be your own boss. ACX is not your boss. You are not a victim. The same with AI. the name that shall not be spoken.
Absolutely.
You are not a victim. You find your own work. Nobody's going to take it away. Nobody can take it away from you because it's yours. You find
And the issue really is that when the work isn't coming, initially my sister-in-law said, oh, I thought this was just a hobby. Are you actually going to be able to make a living doing this? And there was a moment where I went, oh, she's right. I should get an office job because that's what I know how to do. And I went, hang on, no, that's not a thing. And that's her opinion. She doesn't think she would be able to make a living doing what I do, but she isn't me. And suddenly when you let go of the need to have other people approve of you, and you actually just get on with what you approve of, which I don't think I'd been very good at listening to before. I'd never been very aware of what I wanted. I was so when I came on 18 months ago and I chatted about this thing I just discovered, it was the concept that we live in a constant fight with ourselves with regards to acceptance and authenticity. We live in societies and within families who need us to behave in particular ways. You're not allowed to go around killing people. If you're under 18 in my family, you're not allowed to speak until spoken to. There are rules within families that you adhere to because otherwise you're not allowed to belong. And as humans, we want to belong. So we make ourselves into the shape that we need to be so that we're accepted. But our authentic selves want to be able to put on a show and do dancing and sing at 3 o'clock in the morning because we feel like it, but it's not acceptable. And so we spend our lives looking for friends and groups and partners and bosses and fellow employees who are like us and who allow us to be ourselves. And that's what I found in audiobooks. I found a space where people went, you're Anna, come on in. And I went, really? I don't have to be anything or do anything. I can just be Anna. Are you sure? Because mostly I've been told that I need to be smaller or quieter or louder or, more fun or less fun or whatever it is. And people are going, no, just come in. It's fine. And so I now spend my whole time doing that and saying to people, you're welcome here. There is space for everybody. And there is work for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I found. I've got to say, that's what I found in burlesque and circus. I was normal. I don't feel that in audiobooks. I do feel like the eccentric weirdo, but I don't care because everyone's so nice and welcoming. It's fine. They're happy to have the weirdo with them. But in burlesque and circus, I was just normal, like literally. So I was like boring. It was fabulous. You know what I mean? It was really fabulous. There's a place for everyone in the whole world, basically. And even if the audiobook isn't your place, it's not my place, but it's not, I don't fit in. But it doesn't matter because so many audiobook narrators, I think we were the kids that didn't fit in anyway, in one way or another. And
I think so. And I think that's the creative life, isn't it? The reason we are creatives is because we have a certain something that we bring. The life experience we have, the traumas or the happy things that we go through make us into the people we are and make us trust certain people or want to work with certain people or want to narrate particular genres and not others. There's so many things that are available to us and we each get to define our space. And I think, again, with that awareness of self, once you know who you are and what you're offering to the industry, you don't have to worry that somebody else got 72 romance books because you don't want to read 72 romance books. If you're after nonfiction, then suddenly you're approaching very different publishing houses. So it's really important to find out who you are, what you're offering, and then who would like what you've got. And I love that idea of kind of, fitting the round pegs into the round holes and the square pegs into the square holes. Or the industry is so... you listen to the people who talk about horror. I don't think I've done one horror book. The people who really do horror, like you, Daniela, absolutely love it. There's this kind of, almost, tangible thing about it that just drives you. And I think when you find your genre, suddenly it's a group within a group. You belong with other narrators who talk about that particular thing. So when you find out who you are, you stop trying to do horror and romance and historical fiction and memoir and nonfiction and, YA and children's books. And it's not and anymore. It's like, this is me and this is what I offer. And suddenly that's what branding is about. And your marketing becomes easier because you're selling your authentic self. You're saying all of my life experiences led to this point, And today, this is who I am. And this is my best narration that I'm offering you.
And do you know what's funny? Everyone's trying to find their genre. But if you shout loudly enough about what you love, your genre finds you.
Yes.
Like I'm doing an apocalypse for the first time, and I love apocalypses. Who knew? You know what I mean? I would never have thought I would. It's fabulous.
Lovely.
But it finds you, right?
Very much so.
Some of the genres you do, probably when you started, wouldn't have been the ones in the front of your mind.
No, not at all. And another one of the questions that comes up on the monthly thing at the beginning of this month, we had a question about demos, and we were having a conversation about what demo you should have. Like people say you shouldn't have too many, and depending on who you're applying to, how do you create a demo and what do you do? And I said, actually, I very recently changed all of my demos, because for the first 5 years I was producing demos I thought producers wanted to hear. And so if I was applying to Penguin Random House, where I know they do a lot of YA, my demos were all about like fantasy and younger people and much more exciting than not. And so I suddenly had demos for every occasion, which was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting. And suddenly on Wednesday of last week, I realized that the difference is that rather than now creating a demo and going, is this what you like? Please, sir, may I have a job? I now go, look what I made. Does anybody like this? Look what I made. And it's this toddler energy that I'm absolutely loving, where I'm now meeting people who go, did you make that? We want that. And suddenly I go, I can do that because I made this. And it's the love
has gone into it as well.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing as the disability talk, and that we talked with a friend. She said it's fine, but I just won't say the name just in case. Had been told by a coach that they shouldn't mention that they had a disability, because it would get in the way of them getting hired. And then and my first instinct was, what? That's wrong. And then I remembered all the job interviews, because then another coach told her, well, I understand what they're saying. Don't give them any reason not to hire you. And it made me think of all the corporate jobs I rocked up to, and I knew exactly what they wanted to hear. And there was no job I didn't get. Even if I wasn't qualified at all, I got the damn job, because I knew how to interview, because you give them what they want. It's all about selling yourself to them. But I think the trick to be a successful narrator isn't selling yourself out to every, left, right, and center person that desperate for somebody to like you. I think the trick is to say, if you've got a disability, I've got a disability, and I've got a quirky personality, and I've got a sultry voice, and I'm a big ball of fire of talent, and everyone wants me, and I love myself so much, and everyone loves me. Come get it. And if you don't, I'm sorry, what was your name? I'm really busy, but I'll be here anytime you do want me. They come to you.
It always comes back to self-awareness, doesn't it? The things that are important to you, the things that you feel define you and that you would like to have define you. You get to pick and choose those, and you get to shout about them on social media, and you get to write blog posts about them, or go on a podcast and talk about them. And suddenly you become the girl who has 7 dogs. Yeah. And suddenly all the dog books are going to come to you, because you do nothing but talk about dogs. Whatever the thing is that is your passion and that lights your fire.
What's her name? Natalie Nadas? Is she on TikTok? The TikTok girl. Yes. There's nobody that gets, how those people that post about their success and you get like that. There's nobody that does that to Natalie Nadas, because she's like just so cool and so good at what she does, and she's got her niche, and she's like loves it and does it. And it's like, because it comes from love. It doesn't come from a desperate. So tell us, this person that we talked about at the beginning of the call, let's call her Daphne. Daphne, I don't know, I didn't want to use the word Jane or Karen, because I think those are taken right now in the media. But Daphne doesn't feel at all worthy, thinks she's never going to measure up to other people, and has a deep down core of insecurity. What does Daphne do with this? Because Daphne's not going to turn around and say, I am a big ball of fire with great talent, come and get me. Where does Daphne get from where she is to that?
It's a long road. So Unfortunately, you have to do some unpicking. So usually there's a message that's been sent from your parents, from your grandparents that you grew up with that says, you know, it's not nice to show off, or nobody likes a smart aleck. You know, you hear that enough times or at the right times, and you understand that even though you know the answer to the question, you shouldn't raise your hand. Or even though, you know, you could sing the song better than that child everybody else is watching, you shouldn't tell people. And all of that bleeds into your life. It stops you going for a particular promotion or becoming an audiobook narrator or thinking you're worthy of even reaching out for a job. And when you start realizing that that voice isn't actually yours, it's your father's inability to, you know, his worry about finances and looking after his family that may have stopped him taking chances. And he doesn't want that for you. He doesn't want you to take chances because you may fail. But you might be the kind of person who wants to fail all the time, because otherwise, how do you find out which are the good bits? And if that's in your personality, hiding that and making that small makes you ill. So I think it's about discovering and unpicking which bits of those things that are holding you back are yours and which are somebody else's. You know, we have so many limiting beliefs, as you know, you can research all of this stuff online. You know, you can type in limiting beliefs and they'll give you, you know, it's like love languages. There are different types of people and different ways of loving or learning. You know, we all learn differently. There are so many different ways of being. And when you start discovering which bits suit you, which bits fit you, which bits work for you, you get to basically put all those pieces together, and it becomes this kind of funnel that points you in the direction of where you need to be going. And whether that keeps you within audiobooks or takes you into corporate VO or commercial VO, because actually you are too much of a ball of fire and long form narration isn't for you, or the opposite. If the idea of shutting yourself in your booth, like me, for several hours at a time without anybody bothering you is heaven, then welcome. You know, it's kind of finding what works for you and who you are, and doing that allows you to be much more at peace with what you're doing and stop the
comparison.
I have a friend who calls me once in a while and she says things like, I just sent it off an audition, but they're not going to give me the book. I'm like, okay. And she said, no, you're supposed to say they might give you the book and it might be okay. And like, well, they might give you the book and it might be okay. So no, you mustn't say what I tell you to say. You have to like, be happy for me. And I'm like, I am happy for you, but you're already self-rejecting. You know, you're already putting your foot into the arena and then taking it out again. You know, why did you bother applying for the book if you thought they weren't going to give it to you? That was a waste of your time. So if you have done your research, if you've worked out that you would be a great voice for this book, and it's worth applying for, then it's worth applying for. If you then don't get it, there are other books. And half the time you discover that either the book didn't get produced or the person who did get it doesn't have a voice anything like yours. And I spend my whole time going, if that's the voice they were after, then I can't do that. So they're much better off giving it to her or him or, you know, whatever they went with. And so you have to kind of, it is about stopping and taking stock. You know, are you putting your energy in the right places? Are you, is it a scattergun approach and you're just emailing any and every producer in the hope that at some point somebody will say hello and you go, hello, don't even remember what I sent you, but hi. And you know, or are you, you know, following people, listening to their podcasts, sending them an email saying, I heard you being interviewed and I loved what you said about Pekingese dogs, you know, or that you went to Santa Barbara last year. I'm surprised I didn't bump into you because I was in Santa Barbara. Ha ha. You know, it's the having something to connect with people about, because ultimately the thing about the idea of producers being our overlords and giving us work isn't really what it's about. And the whole idea of being a freelancer is that you work for the person who will pay you. So, you know, the guys with the sticks didn't walk around going, I've told that man I'll work in his army, but I don't know if he'll have me. Like the idea is bizarre. When you take it back to medieval mercenaries, they're just walking around waiting for the highest bidder. Why aren't we those people? That's what a freelancer is.
Yeah, we're
And
not
instead,
even working for them. We're working for us, right? We're the product.
My other issue with that is that I didn't realize that being a freelancer was going to be quite so full-time. And when I say full-time, I mean all the time. You know, when I'm out for dinner, I'm still thinking about the book I haven't finished, or the invoice I didn't send, or the fact that I didn't quite do enough today, so I'm going to have to do double tomorrow. That never goes away. And so what I've started doing, I was reminded of it because somebody was talking about chasing invoices the other day. And I said, I have a lady called Irene who sends emails for me. And she says, I'm Ana CLEMENTS' assistant. This is Irene. I was just wondering if there was any chance of following up on that payment. You know, it's now more than 60 days overdue. Irene doesn't exist. I'm Irene. But sometimes I don't feel like I've already sent an email saying, here's my invoice, can you pay me? And you haven't paid me. And then Irene takes over and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And suddenly I realized I need to do the same thing with my job. I need to work for myself, not be the boss and have nobody help me. I need to work what suits me. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and actually take time off. When I'm not at work, I'm not working. And that's only just starting to happen for me. And I think that's the other thing I love about this, is that we all go through these kind of peaks and troughs of information overload, or needing coaching, or wanting better books, or needing to shift out of a genre, or discovering that our demos are no longer representative of our work and having to redo them. There's always something new and something different happening. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but there's always one thing to be done right now. Whether that's actually just sitting in your booth recording, which is what I should be doing right now. There's always one thing, isn't there? We don't have to do everything all the time, which is what I was trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a guilt. I can't, I've still not managed to take a day off. I've got to crack it. I've got to crack it. Something always happens. Yeah, something always happens. I think that's the diet mentality. Like tomorrow, I'm going to feel so healthy and fabulous and wake up wanting to run around the block. And then everything's going to be perfect. And then I'm going to feel so great. I'm going to be dieting and fabulous and skinny by the end of the year. And I do the same thing with audiobooks. Tomorrow, I had this book. I had a day off between the last book and this book. And I had easy days. I was going to do 90 finished minutes a day. And the first day I woke up, lots of noise outside and my throat messed up. And I struggled, and I stood in that damn booth and I got 45 minutes finished. So the 45 minutes went on to the rest of the days. And then bad throat, that 45 minutes went on to now for the next 4 days, I have to finish 3 finished hours each day, no matter what. The girl that still almost died doing 45 minutes today. It's like, I envy those people that take time off. And I know
it's not about taking time off, Daniela. It's about scheduling and learning about yourself. You know, if you know that you can only commit to 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week, then you can't be doing 4 books a month. So again, self-awareness and setting your goals realistically is really important.
Book yourself then for 12 books in a month, if you know that. But I don't think I'm going to be a 45-minute a day girl. Like, I know at this point in my fitness, I can barely walk around the block, but I still think I'm a 2-hour walk a day girl.
You see, my issue is that I would sometimes book a job that needs finishing by Friday, and I can do 8 hours in 5 days. And then other times where I have 3 weeks to do an 8-hour job, and suddenly it takes me 3 weeks. And I realized that my issue is that I make the jobs fit the space. So when I limit the time, I get more done. So by telling myself that I'm not allowed to work after 5, or I'm not allowed to work on Saturdays and Sundays, also stops me putting the washing on, putting a shelf up, because that's a Saturday job. On Saturdays, I do house stuff. I clean, I cook, I shop, I put up shelves, I clear out the garage. Those are Saturday jobs. And Sundays are actually days of rest. The days for going for a walk, for checking out the local National Trust place, you know, whatever that happens to be. And I've had to make that part of my job. As a freelancer, I get to decide that, and that's what suits me. Now, I know there are people out there who narrate from 8 in the morning to 6 at night, 7 days a week, and, you know, come out to see their kids and put them to bed and have dinner with their partner. And again, that suits them, and they're making a complete fortune, and good for them. And I think you just have to find out what you want from your job and how
Yeah.
much of your life you want to devote to it, and then make that work for you.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
you
different
made me
for everybody.
realize, because every time I set the schedule up for those 90-minute days, because I haven't given myself time off enough, the first day you're going to go in to record, I just don't go in. Have you ever done that? I'm going to go in the booth now. I'm going to go in the booth now. And then it's like 5:30. Well, I've got to do the dinner. The day's over. And my husband's making noise. I can't go in the, oh, well, at least I've got a little bit of space. I can do 2-hour days like I used to when I was fit and young.
But that was my issue with sort of fitting the job to the space. When as a freelancer, I live alone, and suddenly my time is all my own. And so in theory, I ought to be able to record 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Why am I not a millionaire?
Yeah.
You know, and it's
It
because
should
actually
be easy.
it should, but it's not how I want to spend my life. And that took
Yeah.
me some time to work out. You know, all that negative self-talk, the idea of when I had a job, when I had an office job, I went to work and got in at 10 to 9 and I left at 5:05 and I was home by 6. I didn't think about work till the next day. You know, I might think about it on the bus in, but pretty much when I was home, I was then finding out what everybody else had been up to or sorting through whatever things I was doing. This job isn't like that. And I found that really, and again, COVID and the pandemic has kept people at home with their partners, with their children, people are homeschooling, and everybody's only just getting back into the rhythm of the old ways, which aren't the old ways anyway. We're all kind of confused about how worried should we be? Should we pretend not to be worried? Do we carry on regardless? And again, it suits everybody differently. My father passed at the beginning of the pandemic. He got COVID and died. And right from the start, I pretty much locked myself at home and went, I'm not participating. I'm not doing anything till somebody tells me what's going on here. And for about a year, I watched the news. I scrolled constantly. I was permanently worried. And I went, I can't do this. I can't be this upset all the time. And something has to change. And you have to get sufficiently uncomfortable to go, I'm not enjoying myself. And I should be, because 4,000 weeks, we need to be, and we're creatives. We're supposed to be having fun. You know, the reason we do this is because we love it. And I appreciate there are times I get in the booth and I'm not feeling it. You know, the characters aren't coming to me and I'm not inspired by some, you know, otherworldly thing. But ultimately, it's a job. You know, we just need to get the books out. And if that means rewarding yourself with a pasta dinner at 8 o'clock because, you know, you managed to get 2 hours done that day, then you have to work out what works for you. You have to work out. But I was discovering that I thought working less 7 days a week was going to be better. And all that happened was I never stopped thinking about it. And so giving myself limiting my time in the booth and at work actually helped me find myself again. And I think it's different for everybody at different times. And I think that's why, you know, these courses where people say, you know, do these 8 lessons and we'll make you a demo and you'll be famous. It doesn't work for everybody. And not everybody's self-motivated enough.
I love the office hours idea. See, for me, I stress out. I become too determined when it comes to deadlines and I freak out and I stress out. But if I've got to be in the booth from 10 to 12, and you reminded me of something Lori Kane did, and I'd forgotten and I've never tried it, but it sounds like a really cool idea. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. I don't think she does. She set herself up a spa, right? She had a few days and she was like, right, all these things I've wanted to do. I want to record such and such amount. I want to do meditation, all those things that we always say we want to do. She gave herself a spa schedule, right, from such and such time to such and such time. And it worked. She stuck to it. And I said, how did you make yourself get up? Because that's a problem. I don't make myself get up and walk in the other. She goes, I visualized my feet walking into the other room. I imagined my feet. I want to try that because it sounded like a really cool idea. Like,
you have to continue to try anything and everything until you find the thing that works for you, don't you? You know, I realized that if I was the boss of this company that I own and I had a narrator who worked for me, I wouldn't expect her to be thinking about the job all day, every day. I would expect her to turn up, to deliver files, and to leave. And I went, but I'm that person. So why am I not holding myself to that standard? And I think it's just for me, it was the shift from office work to freelance work that took me by surprise. You know, I was really prepared already for the business side of things, the being sufficiently organized, the invoicing, the research required, the coaching needed, the research, the lessons, whatever those things were. But the time management really threw me. And again, I think you just have to find the thing that's not necessarily working for you and find out why, and then make it work.
Like with me, it was having a job I cared about. I've never had a job I cared about in my life. I've never had a job I didn't actually quite detest and wouldn't have gotten out of in a second. Even school I hated. I wanted to stay home and do stuff. And so, yeah, it's okay. I don't want to run out of time. I have a very important question. Barbara, don't forget us. You're running out of time. Okay. I've got a very important question. If we're going to put a lockbox, we're going to, with a key, I can't remember the name of the box, but the schools do it. The kids
put time capsule.
A time capsule, yes. We're going to bury a time capsule, and in 60 years, they're going to dig it up. And what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want? A joke, last words of wisdom, something you want to leave people with? What do you want them to see from Anna when they dig that box up in 60 years off YouTube?
I've watched so many of these and I'd completely forgotten that you asked this question.
I know, which makes it even better, huh? The element of surprise.
So today, I think this changes for me constantly, but today it's, you can't be good until you start. I think I spent so much time not taking action on things because I was worried I wasn't going to be good enough, or I needed to have a certificate of some kind to prove that I was good enough, or that I belonged, or you know, that I understood enough to be able to take part. And actually, you can't be good until you start. Failing is the prize. Getting it wrong teaches you to do it better. And I think we don't allow ourselves to practice, to play. You know, I currently do an awful lot of historical fiction. And I was telling somebody the other day, the reason I like it is because there is always some very cross older man who can't quite understand what on earth is going on and what the problem is here. And then some older lady who wants to know why everyone is dancing when they really should be taking part in other things. And then some poor maid who doesn't understand what it is that's a problem. And she asked in the kitchen and they said it was going to be all right. And the messing around with it and the playing with all those sounds and doing accents and learning stuff and going on retreats and being able to treat yourself within work to play. I mean, what a glorious job is this? So you can't be good until you start is my message.
Those are very wise. Okay, now we've got a quirky question. Thank you, Barbara. You've outdone yourself yet again. Have you ever asked someone for their autograph? If so, who, when, and where? Oh, wow, really?
So, yeah. So I was born into a Roman Catholic family. And I lost the plot in my 20s because I went to university and I discovered all sorts of other things. And I went, but this doesn't add up and that doesn't make sense. And I liked faith. I liked believing that somebody else was in charge. It worked for me. And then I couldn't believe it anymore. And I was really upset throughout my 20s that I'd lost the plot. And I was searching for something, something to hold on to, something to believe in. And I was really into, you know, as a teenager, I was reading You Can If You Think You Can, and, you know, all the 1980s self-help books that started. I was into everything and anything I could get my hands on. And by this time I'm in my 30s and I'm still trying to make sense of life. You know, it didn't make any sense to me. And I discover Deepak Chopra. And I think he's just the bee's knees. I discovered him because I was following at the time Tony Robbins, who was a big deal then. He just discovered that he didn't want to be a bum in LA and he actually wanted to inspire people. And he wasn't quite the gruff, enormous man he is now. He was kind of much more curious and much more still wondering whether any of this was going to work. And he did this series of interviews where he interviewed different people from different places. This was before podcasts. So once a month, I would receive a cassette in the post for £3. I'd signed up for like 3 years, and a single cassette would arrive with Tony Robbins interviewing somebody. And he interviewed the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it was a fascinating kind of series of interviews. And one of them is Deepak Chopra. And Deepak Chopra comes on and he starts talking about the fact that we're all just trying too hard and that we're all one. And this idea that the things we don't like in other people, when we fight with other people, it's usually because they're representing things we don't like in ourselves, and kind of just made me go, what? Mm-hmm. And then the following weekend, I go up to visit my parents. I'm in London and I'm driving past this poster and it says, next weekend here, Deepak Chopra, pay us £5 and come and listen to him speak. And I'm like, well, that's a sign, isn't it? So I phone up and I'm like, there won't be any tickets left. And the lady said, actually, we've just had 3 or 4 tickets returned. Would you like one? I'm like, yes. So I go to the talk by myself and I turn up and I sit down in this hall. Deepak Chopra has just written, you know, one of his many 7 spiritual signs of whatever. And he's talking about all this stuff. And I'm just enthralled because he's all about self-worth and self-empowerment and the fact that it's already in you. There is no learning. There's no becoming. It's accepting and acknowledging and being nicer to yourself. And I was just like, oh, all of this. Yes. Well, there's about 50 of us in the room. And at the end, they say, if anybody would like to buy Deepak's book and come up, he's willing to sign and so on. And I had no money and I didn't buy the book, but I queued. And so people are going, hello, Mr. Chopra, really pleased to meet you. Thank you very much for signing my book. And he'd had a Sharpie and he's signing everybody's book. And then there's 3 people and then there's 2 people and then it's going to be my turn. And I stand in front of him and I say, I listened to your interview with Tony Robbins and I just wanted to say that you put into words everything I've always known, but somebody's actually now said it. And it was fantastic. And he said, do you have a book for me to sign? And I said, no. And he said, okay. And moves on to the next person. And I went, oh. And, you know, it thrilled me because that was the point. I didn't need his autograph. I didn't need his permission. I don't need external validation. What he'd done was revive in me the awareness that I can do this. And you can't be good until you start. It's time to get up and get out.
You didn't have a cast or something, or or could you sign my hand and then just not wash it?
I should just, you know. Yeah, it wasn't that kind
lovely.
of place.
but think about it. Half of what you said you learned from him came through in your message tonight. So those things become part of who you are. And doesn't that make you think, see all the things we've learned from all the narrators we've met and all the amazing Paul Strickwerda, I think I'm getting his surname right, when he had the stroke and he said that he had to relearn emotions. I've never forgotten that. Like every little thing we learn from each other is going to stick with us and become part of our story in like 30 years.
And also the awareness that each of us is traveling our own journey. You know, you see people on social media and you see them with their grandkids or them walking through the snow with their dog. And you're like, oh, I wish I had a dog. I want to walk in the snow. But actually, you know, you don't know what they're going home to or whether they're worried about things or whether they have other issues going on. And we kind of forget sometimes to acknowledge that the reason I think this industry works so well is because we are so supportive of each other. We enjoy each other's posts on social media and are happy for each other, like Natalie Nordacy were talking about, because there is enough space for everybody. There is enough work for everybody.
The Burley Girls, there's enough gorgeous to go around.
We're each bringing something so individual that it's not a competition. You're only competing with yourself. You only need to be better than you were yesterday. And that you can do. You know, it's so impossible to measure yourself against somebody else's standard. And when you suddenly realize that actually you have a standard and you can measure yourself against it, it was huge for me. It was a really, really good breakthrough.
And what
So
other
an
job do we have so
ongoing
much
journey.
evidence of how supportive this job, like so many, Ana Caputo reaching out to me because she saw a book and saw that I'd been doing the series, and reaching out to the writer saying, was this you? And it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Who does that? If we were competition, you wouldn't do that.
No.
And I did feel in the voice, I'm not, there are strong bonds as well, but I felt that the voiceover industry was more competitive. I might be wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like it was a lot more business because of the nature of the jobs, because they're constantly having to like haggle for jobs, because it's a job is like an hour, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas in audiobooks, I think all I've done is collect evidence of narrators supporting other narrators. Can't think of any evidence off the top of my head of a narrator actually going out to do something competitive to undermine another narrator. I mean, I'm sure it might happen, but none of my friends.
But also because it's actually a very small industry. You know,
Yeah.
I say it's enormous and there's space for everybody, but actually we all hear things, and the fact that the job is so much about communication, it's so much about sharing parts of yourself and connecting with other people. You can't lie about that for any length of time. You know, if you had to pretend, again, that's why the authenticity comes back again, doesn't it? The reason I get hired to do the books I get hired to do is because, not just because of the way I sound, but because of the impression I bring. You know, the way that I interpret words is different to anybody else because of my life experience. And that's what I'm being hired for. That's what people hear when they want to hire me to read a book. And each of us
Full
has that.
package, who you deliver as a person. So my friend with this disability, they hire me because I have a disability, such and such voice, this take on the character. And something else that I'm big on with, again, the AI stuff, and somebody had said to me that they're just accepting that they're never going to be a perfect narrator. What is that? I want to listen to stories with voices that crack. I want to hear somebody on the verge of tears. I want masterfully, because seriously, how easy is it to cry and lose it, but not lose it and still be acting? And
Yes.
step away because you're bawling your eyes out and come back in the booth and deliver with just the right. I want to hear that. I don't want to hear a perfect narrator. I can think of nothing more boring in the entire world than a perfect narrator. You know what I mean?
We want to be told stories, don't we? It is about connection. We want to share our stories and our lives and our habits and our experiences.
And
And
hear
ultimately
ourselves. By people that are braver than the listener. I think that's our job, to jump right into the things they're afraid to say, like you've done on this call. One of the bravest people I know. Seriously, you always are. You always confront your questions, your doubts head on. And that is the thing I think I admire about you the most. Even when you're not sure about something, you ask yourself the hard questions, and you always come up with the answers.
Eventually.
Which is cool. So thank you so much, Ana. I can't thank you enough. And thank you to the beautiful, gorgeous studio audience.
Thank you very much.
Wow. I feel like I'm floating now. Thank you for a wonderful call. Thanks, you guys. And thank you to Barbara for the question. Fabulous. You always deliver, Barbara. Take care, you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.